Alright, so welcome back for our final video for Lesson 1 in Module 2 here. We're going to finish off talking about this section, and we have the square of a binomial to cover here. Okay, so we're going to flip the direction again. So in the last couple problems that we were doing, we started with a polynomial and we factored. We divided it up into a product of two things. Okay, but for this case, we're going to actually now do the multiplication. So we're going to take something that's a square and we're actually going to multiply it out, not factor it. Okay? And you'll see here what happens when we square a binomial. Okay? So here we factored differences of perfect squares into, this, and we came up with a general rule here where if you have a squared minus b squared, that will always factor to a minus b times a plus b. So now we'll see what happens when we take a single binomial and square it, like x plus 3 squared. Okay, so first of all, be careful here. A lot of students will make an error. When they see this, they'll think, oh, easy, x squared plus 3 squared, which is x squared plus 9. But that is not the case. Okay, what does it mean when you square something? This is very important to recall or to understand. What does it mean when you square something? If I have 2 squared, what does that equal? It's 4, right? But why is it 4? Because it's 2 times 2, right? And it's 3 squared is 9 because it's 3 times 3, which then gives you 9. So when you have x plus 3 squared, that means you're doing x plus 3 times x plus 3. And how do we multiply that out? Well, again, in the earlier video we showed you, right? You can use a table if you want to. And then, you get x squared, 3x, and 9, and you add all these things together. Or you can use that distributive property idea where you do the x times the x times the 3 times the x, the 3 times the 3, and either way you get this result right here, which when multiplied you get this, and then when you combine like terms, which are just these two, you get the 6x. And that's your final answer right there. Okay, so let's take a look at some examples here. And so they want us to square using just a and b to determine this general rule. So remember that we came up with a general rule for factoring a difference of squares. In this case, we're going to come up with a general rule for squaring a binomial. So a plus b quantity squared will be a plus b times a plus b. Okay, a minus b squared will be a minus b times a minus b. Go ahead and pause the video and multiply these two things out and combine like terms, and multiply these two things out and combine like terms. Okay, so hopefully you pause the video. A times b times a, b times b. And so we get a squared plus ab plus ba plus b squared. Do we have any like terms? Well, depending on how you look at this, you might not think that there are, but in fact, a, b, and ba are like terms, because a times b is the same thing as saying b times a, right? 2 times 3 is the same thing as 3 times 2. So instead of ba, let's go ahead and just write that as an ab, and so we get a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. Okay, let's do this one, and I'll do this one with a table. So to do that, I'll need to change it from a minus b to be a plus negative b and a plus negative b. And so a times a there is going to give us the a squared here. A times negative b is going to be minus ab. Negative b times a will be negative ab. And then negative b times negative b, positive b squared. And so what do we end up with? When we combine like terms here, we'll get a squared minus ab plus b squared, which is a squared minus 2ab plus b squared. Okay, so there's our final answers for both of these. Alright, so let's do some of these exercises here. Square the binomial. Okay, so a plus 6 squared. So again, you can use these general forms if you want to. The a plus 6 squared would follow the a plus b squared version here, except instead of the b, you'd have the 6. Right, so anywhere you see a b here, you could replace it with 6 if you wanted to. in my mind, I'm like, y learns this specific thing here. I mean, it's not that hard to just multiply this out, right? So let's just go ahead and do it. I'll use the table method for this one. So it's a plus 6 times a plus 6, which then would look like this in a table. Okay, a times a will give us a squared, a times 6 is 6a, 6 times a is 6a, 6 times 6 is 36. And again, we combine all those together. And again, we have some like terms here, so we'll go ahead and just say that's a squared plus 12a plus 36. Okay, we are adding, right? So 6 and 6 makes the 12 there. All right, and let's do the 5 minus w squared. So 5 minus w squared is 5 minus w times 5 minus w. Again, pause the video here and try this on your own. Okay, so it'll be 5 times 5, 5 times minus w, so that'll give us 25 minus 5w, and it'll be minus w times 5 minus w times minus w, so it'll be minus 5w plus w squared. And we get w squared minus 10w plus 25. I like to put it in order of highest power to next highest power to lowest power. So there's our final answer. Whoop. All right, thank you guys for watching. We'll see you in lesson 2.